I don't really have an opinion, I guess. It's just a matter of, I think if you just struck the word merit, it makes sense. Points will be awarded for satisfactory or above standards performance, or deducted for below standards performance based on each rating on the overall evaluation, the last 5 evaluations. And the evaluations conducted annually. Right?
Yeah.
When evaluations are tied into money, were they done more than annually?
No.
Well, it might serve a useful purpose to say the last 5 annual evaluations, if they are done annually. And there's nothing saying, I guess, if we don't say annual evaluation, I guess you could decide to have one every couple of years or do 2 or 3 in a year. I think you probably need to say annual evaluations. Do you agree? So I guess section 2 would read performance, colon. Points will be awarded for satisfactory or above standards performance or deducted for below standards performance based on each rating on the overall evaluation for the last 5 annual evaluations. Points will be awarded per, I guess, per year as follows. Implies that it's an annual thing, but it's, I prefer to say annual evaluation. Points will be awarded per year as follows, and then it goes down to a new chart.
Anything else on that article?
Well, it's kind of a concern in the very first paragraph. I guess it's going to hit this issue number. Maybe not the first paragraph, but second paragraph. Retention matrix. The following criteria will be utilized in a retention matrix to ascertain the order in which employees will be laid off. Employees will be compared with other employees in the same job title in the same department. The $100 question is, what happens when the entire job title is eliminated and the entire...
You don't use the matrix.
Huh?
You don't use the matrix.
What happens then?
That position's eliminated.
The person gets laid off?
Yeah.
No, we can't have that.
Well, that's
We can't have
the purpose of
eliminating the entire job title in the same entire department, or you mean to tell me that you're just going to just lay the person off and there's absolutely no matrix applied to them whatsoever? Is that what your proposal is?
That's the way it's done.
Well, the way it's been is inconsistent at best. There's certain departments that use the matrix and certain departments that don't, from what I understand.
You don't understand how it works.
You obviously don't understand how it works.
Well, I've been told that there's certain departments that use a matrix and certain departments
The
that don't.
matrix is done by personnel under the circumstances outlined in the career service manual and the retention matrix. The way it works is through the budget process. Ultimately, the county administrator determines that certain positions are going to be cut. If let's see, Department A has 10 rocket scientists and we're cutting 4 of them, then you use the matrix. And all 10 of them are compared and the 4 are quote-unquote matrixed out. That's done. If all the rocket scientists in a department are cut and you have 10 of them, there's no reason to use the matrix because there's no reason to compare them because they're all being cut.
Well, if that's all they do is design rockets because they're rocket scientists and you're no longer in the business of designing rockets, that would be one thing. But suppose we're not using a scenario of rocket scientists, but more so equipment operators. And you have a special equipment operator for solid waste. I'm going to give a hypothetical. That's what that job title is. The guy operates heavy equipment, whether he works in solid waste, it doesn't mean he can't do the same thing in DPW or road maintenance or somewhere else. He's an equipment operator. But since his job title that has a very specific department-related component to his job title, since that's been eliminated, even though he can do a multitude of other jobs within accounting, and you're saying that he doesn't have a right to go into another job classification that is very similar or equal to his, that he just gets laid off with no rights under the
Well,
matrix.
as Doug can tell you, when somebody's laid off, we give them at least 30 days notice and an opportunity to apply for other positions. So that's where, if there were other vacancies that.
But there's no scoring. If Doug was laid off, then the matrix doesn't apply to him, and there's no scoring. There's no value for his years of seniority or his evaluations or anything like that, right? The matrix doesn't apply to him.
If all the positions were cut in the same department, yeah, you don't use the matrix.
What was your job title?
Park operator 1.
And those park operator 2s?
Yes.
Were the park operators 3s?
No.
There's no such thing as a 3, just 1s and 2s?
1s and 2s.
And they eliminated the 1s?
Yes.
But they kept the 2s?
Yes.
Okay, and what was beneath the park operator 1?
Crew leader.
Okay, did you apply for crew leader?
Yes.
And were you given a job?
I was told I wasn't qualified.
Even though you were in a job that was above crew?
Yes.
Above crew leader. That's what the problem was.
Well, I don't know who to say he wasn't qualified, honestly. He was
Well, it seems
qualified.
odd that the people he's supervising, you figure he would probably be qualified to do the job of the people he's supervising, or why would he be supervising them? So this is a classic example of why we want this, if we're going to agree to this matrix as it is, we want it to apply for when positions are eliminated or departments are eliminated. Basically, any employee who's displaced, this matrix should apply to them. It's only fair.
But how do you do it if you're eliminating all of them? What's the purpose of this whole exercise?
Who are you then comparing to?
Yeah.
Who are you ranking them against?
I don't get that.
Like the entire, the balance of the workforce?
Well, maybe the same criteria would apply for the applicants, that if a person is displaced, that the matrix would apply for that they would be able to go into another department and they have some sort of point score. You guys are all into your point score. They're going to have some sort of point score associated.
What we did is, they could apply for anything and they got first preference in interviewing. And that's how we ended up getting hired with.
Yeah, well, that plan just doesn't work for us because we have at least one person sitting in this room and another guy who left because he just found employment elsewhere. But we're basically told they're not qualified or not suitable, or basically we just don't have a right to have this position, which was one step below from where they came from. And it seemed pretty strange that the one sliver of a position was eliminated. But you have a right to do that. You have a right to redesign or restructure your workforce to get that. But when a person is displaced, they got to have somewhere to go other than just being at the mercy of where you can just go interview. That we're going through this painstaking process of having a point assessment program. So I'm glad we had this discussion because I suspected that might have been the case, but I wanted to get it out there today.
It has not been a secret.
Yeah, where have you been for the last?
Oh, I've been here, Jim.
2 years.
And where have you been when you listen to us that we've rejected your proposal again and again and again and again? And now we're talking about a meeting of the minds so where we have the ability to ratify this contract. We're not going to have the ability to ratify this contract when you tell a 20-something-year employee that your one particular position's been eliminated and you're just going to have to go apply and keep your finger crossed. that stuff doesn't work for us. So, anyway, we just need to work on that point. I think we've come, pretty far with the matrix as far as getting into where, we can be comfortable, with the points and how to assess. We just need to talk about when the matrix applies and who it applies to. So, you have our counter, and that's going to be, if you remember what we started talking about this, because we kind of hit a roadblock under the seniority article 19. And you have language in there that says that when there's a reduction in the county workforce, those employees who are designated for layoff shall have no bumping rights. We rejected that because that, I would assume that that that's something we can't live with. And then you said, well, why don't we start talking about what seniority applies to? And then we shifted gears and went to discussion and bargaining over Article 45. So we're kind of interrelated.
Well, I'd be interested in knowing how to use the matrix if all the people with the same title are eliminated, because I don't know how that would come into play. So, looking forward to your camera report.
Are you gonna be working on a proposal to give us on that, or are you just discussing it with us?
I'm telling you that in order for us to get a contract, we have to have some ability to have employees. We're not asking for a complete, total, ironclad, top-down seniority system. We've come to the realization that you have to have the ability to.
You're asking for bumping, the traditional bumping.
Yeah, but if it's bumping, then bumping would be. I guess the employees are going to have a point assessment attached to them. So if the person that they're wishing to bump has a higher point assessment, and again, it's your proposal to have a matrix. We never wanted to have a matrix. We're trying to hit a middle ground here. And so what we're saying is to only have the matrix applied to when you have a layoff and there's no abolishing, a job title. Then we have to have some sort of way of addressing people who have their job title eliminated.
You'll need to make a proposal, because right now you're all over the place.
Let me ask you a question.
Maybe Barbara does, but I don't understand what you're talking about.
John, can I ask you a
Interested
question?
in seeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're saying that you can't apply the matrix for what he's talking about because there's nobody to compare him for.
Right.
Okay, so if the matrix would be aside from what he's talking about, that wouldn't apply to what, how would you rectify the situation he's talking about? It would be outside the matrix?
Well,
If you're saying it won't apply,
No, we're not gonna make your proposal for you. If we eliminate all rocket scientists, they don't bump anybody else. They don't move to some other department and do something other than what they were hired for.
even if they're qualified to do it and they have
But they
more
can
years
apply.
of
They
service?
can apply for it.
But we
if
don't-
There's a vacancy.
Okay,
the
so how do you
problem
come about, he applies for it? What do you do to say, yes, you can have it or you can't have it? What do you
I don't-
base that
I
on,
don't-
to give them the job or not give them the job?
the hiring department decides who they're hiring. I
You
don't
put
tell
it back
them.
in the hands of
I
somebody
don't
who
tell
might
them
not
to
like
hire-
this guy,
to hire
you know?
them.
Go
See,
back
the
to the
problem
same-
with bumping, and we looked at bumping, I want to say about 3 years ago, and the way we were looking at it, if you, say, eliminate people at this level, and they move down to this level, and they move down to this level, and this, obviously at this level, say you need to cut $100,000, and say that's 4 employees, I'm just throwing numbers out, right? When you get down 3 levels, it might be 7 employees. And we thought, not only does it...
7 employees are what, that are displaced?
Yeah,
Equal the
because
same dollar
equals
savings.
$100,000. Because obviously you're talking about budget cuts, So if you had to cut $100,000 at this level, it might be 7 employees at this level. And not only does it disrupt everybody, but you end up laying off more people.
I
So that
don't
was really
agree
the
with that.
that was the deciding factor.
I don't know if you think that we're saying that a person who makes $100,000 in
No.
this place has to come down.
No. I said if we're cutting 100,000, and that might be 4 employees, and I just threw out that number, okay? And then,
Yeah, but those 4 employees at $25,000 a piece, I guess, okay, and you have 4 of them. And their job is eliminated, and they are in a position that's in a job series that they work their way up, and so now they should have the ability to come back down, and that's what our position is. So when they come back down, naturally there's going to be a reduction in pay, provided that they've gone to a lower pay grade.
yeah,
So-
only like 5%.
Okay, well, I'm willing to agree, we do it all the time, but if a person who's in a pay grade 300 has had their job eliminated, and the only job that they can bump down to is a pay grade 100, that they're going to probably receive the maximum of the pay grade that they're performing the work for. I mean, I wouldn't imagine an employer that their coworker is going to say, hey, it sucks that you got laid off or your job got eliminated, but now you're down here working with us, that you should be making the same amount of pay for the work you're performing. I don't think you're going to hear an argument from us on that. So I don't understand your numbers, how it's not adding up to the same. It's still eliminating 4
It's a fact,
positions.
John, in the public sector with the more recent Great Depression, there was a lot of elimination of positions. And in local government where there was the right to bump down, Barbara's example is exactly what happened. The original plan was to lay off 4 people, and they ended up, in most places, having to lay off 6 or 7 to achieve the same savings.
I still don't get it. If you have to eliminate 4 people, you eliminate 4 people.
No, it's not, it's the dollars.
It's not the people, it's the dollar amount.
I understand. So you have 4 people that make $25,000 a year. You have to cut $100,000. Okay? You cut $100,000. You lay off or eliminate 4 people's positions. They come down. Whether they displace somebody or not, you still obtained your goal of reduction.
I do agree with you on this. You don't get
I
it.
mean, I don't understand.
You're right, you don't get it. Because you
be
haven't
like-
seen it in
Well, what I do
operation.
get is that this is unacceptable, where you're going to eliminate positions, because we've had, you've accused us of saying, we got hypothetical scenarios, where are all these people that have been treated so poorly? I'm sitting right next to one, man, and I'm sitting right next to a guy,
He found another.
he didn't get his crew leader job, which he should have gotten. What did you get bumped down to? I mean, what did they accept you as?
Utility worker 3.
And how much of a pay decrease was that?
Well, I was only supposed to lose 5%, but I lost $4.32 an hour.
Huh, big buck.
So it would have been natural for us that, if he was in a position where he was supervising crew leaders and his job is being eliminated, our common sense rationale says that he should be bumped down, be able to bump down to a crew leader, because that's the job that he was supervising, and that the unanimous crew leader would have to be displaced or
But see, if I recall, there weren't enough crew leader vacancies to cover the park operators that were cut. And since we don't do bumping,
bingo.
That's it.
That's what problem is.
And Doug,
One bumping, that's what we
But you're
said.
acting like you're gonna be the first, you're gonna be the first in the country to try this.
but you're
I mean, it's
acting,
done, it's done. I mean, it's not like you're gonna be the first one to ever try this. You got these things in your head that are gonna
but
happen
I
and
told
you're.
you that the,
But in my
The
situation, the
process.
person that got my crew leader's job hadn't worked for the county for 6 months yet.
well,
there you go.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Hey,
He supervised.
and Doug-
For 6 months, but he got the
Doug.
job, that guy got the job and he did.
Well, let's not beat it to that. Give us a written proposal and we'll look at it.
Okay, are you shocked though, Jim, and just by your last statement or the statement before, or what you're looking for is bumping rights, was there any mistake, or there any misunderstanding that when you have a proposal that says there will be no bumping rights and we reject that proposal, that's what we're interested in? Is there a misunderstanding that we wanted
No,
bumping
no,
rights?
no.
I think we've been pretty consistent in our message all along.
You have been consistent. Go ahead. That's why we're still bargaining.
Right, because you don't get what you want, and so, we're still bargaining. I am willing to sign off on grievance and arbitration procedure. I don't think we TA'd that last time.
You have a copy of it? The sign off on?
Yeah, the second version. I have with two-sided pages. I think I have one in my file with one-sided.
We'll make another copy.
I have one. Is that one-sided? Want to just double check that, see if it's your, all we did was strike out that,
Yeah.
yeah. Is it pages 21, 22, and 23 of 75? Annual leave. I think you may have received a count, or a copy if I counted, but I don't know if there's a copy or not. We're changing, the years on that chart. You know,
Yeah, I notated mine.
the other is, response to that.
We reject that. That's an increase in benefit, so we reject it.
Yeah, can't have something like that.
We could, but we reject it.
The medical leave proposal, I believe the last time you had a kind of a contingency that if we accepted something that you would no longer strike out the attendance, you would put the attendance at work program back in. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. What was it that was in exchange for that? I don't remember either.
Gotta find my note. I have to check it. I've got some stuff upstairs in my briefcase. Check the
You
notes.
know what, I think it might have been,
Mike,
I think it might have been discrimination.
I think it was this one.
Huh?
I think it was that. Computing overtime.
Well, regardless.
For computing overtime, I think it was that one. The line in there. That's
Yeah, that's I have a note that says linked to 18. So I don't think it's medical leave, that's 24.
10, Article 10.
10.
I have 10 and 24 together,
What to what?
but I have a link with 10. With the OT language.
Yeah.
Well, we're not agreeing to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want the overtime.
You had a response anyway, though, right?
That's the current, it's the current policy, that's the way it's always been. Medical leave shall not be counted as hours worked for the purpose of computing eligibility for overtime pay. Am I correct in saying that's the current policy? That's the way it's been all along.
Okay.
Well, regardless of, and independent of Article 10, our counter proposal still stands that if you want to have the ability to eliminate the attendance award program, we're giving you that ability by striking the language, however, replacing that with, and I think we may have it, it says bargaining employees shall be allowed to participate in any attendance award program for medical leave conversion offered to non-bargaining employees with the same terms and conditions apply. So if you feel you need to get rid of it, then you can, but if anybody's going to get rid of it too. And so that is our, that is still our counter offer on Article 24. Not contingent upon accepting or rejecting anything else. How do you feel about that?
I don't like it. I don't like any two clauses.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave it in there the way it is. How about that? Like that. Wes?
Doesn't settle that article. Just leaves it open for now.
30, workers' compensation. Last time we looked up at, our comment was to not add that additional sentence. It says no supplemental pay benefit provided by the county.
Yeah, I think you're rejecting that on 4 or 5.
Okay. Any change in that?
No.
Any change in the status of Article 31?
No, I mean, it's addressed somewhere else as well. The only thing that counts towards overtime is hours actually worked. It may be redundant, but
Or is that addressed somewhere else?
it's in the wage article.
So we haven't agreed to leave that.
Wage
So it's addressed somewhere else in one of
I
the other
think so.
proposals.
Yeah, in one of our proposals. And, 43.
What about 42?
It's in 43,
yeah,
it's under the overtime section.
And we haven't agreed to that. What about Article 42, employee performance evaluation? We're pretty close to agreeing on that. I think the hang-up we had last on 4-5, personnel director's disposition of evaluation will be final in your proposal. We don't have to say, will be county's, I think it was 0, the county's final administrative review step. Is that still, we never created it.
Well, I'm not clear what your position is on it. But what
I'm not clear.
What are you prepared to accept?
The county's final administrative review step was your verbiage, I believe, as a county.
Well, let's talk the big picture. Performance evaluations are not grievable or appealable. Do you agree with that?
They're just in that proposal, whether I agree with it or not. So whether they're grievable, it's just that,
They are grievable?
I said whether or not they're grievable, we didn't find out what the personnel director's disposition is equal to. I mean, it says that in the sentence, performance evaluations may not be grieved or appealed, but
And there's a procedure for review. That's not a grievance or an appeal. It's a review. And it's limited to situations where there's a discriminatory bias on the part of the evaluator. So I'm not clear. Are you accepting that?
I'm just trying to find out where we left off at the last time we were talking about this. Was this the article that ultimately led to you withdrawing the non-discrimination?
Yes.
So I think that's how we got, we started bargaining over this, and then we shifted to just, what happens if there was an act of discrimination. But it says in here that the personnel director's disposition and evaluation will be final, and putting an alternative of the county's final administrative review step, not meaning that an employee who felt they had been discriminated against could go to an outside agency. I had raised the issue that, well, if the person had been discriminated against, a grievance could be filed on non-discrimination.
But it would be the end of the administrative review.
Right, and then you came back with withdrawing the discrimination article. So I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but I do need to talk about it with the it's just, if we were to agree to this as written, you're still okay with it, right? Adding county's final administrative review step, replacing the word final with that.
The personnel director's disposition of evaluation will be the county's final administrative review step. That's the language that we discussed.
My question is, if we agree to that, do we have an agreement on this article?
Do we?
It's your language, I'm asking you that, before we break for caucus.
You're right, it's my language. Do you agree to it?
Okay.
I haven't withdrawn it.
Okay, well, then
It's
we'll-
there for discussion. You're ready to TE on it, just tell us.
I just explained to you that if I need to speak to the committee, our committee, you know, we can.
All right, let's
something
take a
short
break and
from
get it.
that, or we can take a break.
Okay, let's take a break. You can talk to your committee. Okay, back on at 11:30.
Article 42, employee performance evaluation. I've seen a couple of things in here that might need to be changed. Second paragraph. Page 58 out of 75.
Okay, go ahead.
The second paragraph reads, the employee's evaluation date is the employee's date of hire. I think it might be better to say, the employee's evaluation shall be completed on the anniversary of the employee's date of hire. Would that be more correct?
Well, you know what, you just reminded me, we're changing it so everybody's evaluation date is the same. So why don't we just say it's annually?
Are you changing it to the first of the year,
No, September 30, we're fiscal year,
first of the fiscal year?
no, the last day of the fiscal year. But
Yeah,
everybody
do the
will
entire
be,
place all at once, because right now it's staggered over a year, I
yeah,
guess.
everybody's evaluation date will be September 30th.
How many people work here in budgeting? I mean, you're doing the entire county on one day, it just seems like it's logistically.
But no, everybody just does, you know, X number, you know, it's whatever the span of control is. It's not like anybody's doing, yeah, it's a lot coming into personnel, but not a lot of evaluations for everybody. And they're not due September 30th, they're due December 1st, so it gives them some time.
Hold on. What date is it? September 30th, they're not due on that day, but you're doing
The
the,
period that the evaluation period is the fiscal year, which is October 1st through September 30th. And of course, they're not all going to be done on September 30th, so they're due December 1st.
all right, so then if you're changing your evaluation process, do you have a new proposal, or you want to modify this one?
The
Because right now it says the date of the employee's date of hire.
We can come back to you with a new one.
Well, I mean,
So how about if it just says the employee's evaluation will be on a fiscal year basis?
Yeah,
Is that good?
on a fiscal year basis. Of course, they will be completed, I mean, it's just.
The evaluation period is the fiscal year.
Okay, so even though the evaluation is completed in October or November or December, you're basically evaluating them on the previous fiscal year's performance.
Right.
All right, what about this second part of that first sentence? If the employee has been promoted, the date of the promotion, does that change too?
That would all come out.
Yeah.
So it would just be a period after a fiscal year basis, period. Delete the rest of the first sentence.
employee's evaluation period will be the fiscal year period, right? Fiscal year, I mean, period is in punctuation.
Yeah.
Employees shall be given a copy of the performance evaluation form, everything's the same thing, I don't know, right? And then, we're replacing the word final, the personnel director's disposition of evaluation will be the county's final administrative review step. I want to ask a question about merit increases. Because, are these, since you don't have merit increases now, my concern is that, well, I want some assurance rather that if we are going to begin having merit increases, that we have to, I guess, bargain over that.
Oh, sure. It's a mandatory subject of bargaining.
Because I don't want to have these employee performance evaluations, which are not breathable, be directly tied in with merit increases. If, when merit increases come back, that we're going to have to, would you have a problem with having a sentence in there that said performance evaluation shall not be tied to merit increases?
There are no merit increases.
If there ever are, there won't be.
Well, you could pick every article of the contract that could have a clause that says, you know, something like that. Why do you need language that has no application?
Because I want it to be completely, totally certain. If you want to capture it in a side letter that performance evaluations that cannot be agreed to.
Well, let's suppose that we decided to unilaterally implement merit increases and tie it to performance, based upon performance evaluations. What would your position be?
I thought we would file an unfair labor practice charge, but it would be nice to have a contractual violation to rely on as well.
The contractual violation just leads us to grievance.
Which would lead us to arbitration.
Right, which is, why would we want to open up another avenue to something that doesn't exist to get to arbitration?
Just on the odd chance that.
You have a remedy.
Did not understand what this.
First of all, we've told you on the record here, and there's a record here, that we believe that that would be a mandatory subject of argument. So it'd be pretty unlikely that we would do it, only to have to play back you saying that
Well,
in conjunction with an unfair labor.
what happens when we disagree during bargaining? Well, I'm going to do is to put it in the contract article so we don't have to bargain. Ding, 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 get it?
No.
Well, I don't think so.
The answer, no, I get it. The answer is
You
no.
do get it, which is in my view. All right, so, you're not willing to have that sentence in there? But everything else, as far as, the other changes, you're okay with?
Yes.
Article 44, compensatory time. You had some references to the FLSA in there, and it's since been struck. I'll put a comment on there. Why? Can you explain that?
Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, parties have to agree before you can establish comp time. And so we have no agreement on that. And the county does not want to agree to comp time. We want to pay what we have to pay in a work cycle, on a work cycle basis. All those references are not necessary. The second part that's been stricken, we can't do. You can't carry over from one pay period to another. You're entitled to be, if you've earned overtime, we could have had an option for comp time. We don't want to agree to that. So therefore, we'll pay you for that work cycle. We won't carry it over. Person gets their money.
My understanding was that when you carry over into the second week, it has to be comp time. It can't be flex time. So this was a reference it's already provided in law. And you're saying, once again, that
That was
afterwards,
because we previously had comp time. Right?
so your desire is to do away with
Eliminate comp time.
altogether.
Correct.
What happens when somebody exceeds the amount of hours at the end of the week that they cannot be flexed, and you're just going to just pay them time and a half? There's just not going to be any comp time.
That's right.
Okay. Take a look at that again. Article 48, holidays. That last sentence that's new underlined, that is not in the Connor County policy, right? Very good.
Hang on, I'm catching up.
The way it is now, you have to be in a pay status the day before and day after. This also adds, as I said.
Say that again, Barbara?
Where it is now with holidays, you have to be in a pay status the day before and after to get holiday pay. The scheduled day for it. This also adds, the sick.
We don't want somebody stacking a sick day with a holiday.
Or what if somebody's genuinely sick?
They forfeit the holiday pay.
They didn't ask to be sick.
Your point?
When someone is sick, truly sick, they didn't ask to be sick, they got sick, that they should lose a benefit just because of the fact that they got sick involuntarily. And I get the point of someone abusing sick leave, saying they're sick when they're not, being a different issue. But right now, somebody, I'm asking one more time, someone right now, when they miss the day before the holiday, they get the holiday pay or they don't, currently.
You said missed the day before?
Yeah, someone who calls out sick the day before a holiday, do they get the holiday pay?
If they have a full day of sick leave, if you only have, say if you only have 2.3 hours left, then you don't get paid for the holiday.
If you have 8 hours of sick leave,
And you're an 8-hour person, yeah.
so this is changing a reduction from what it currently is. We're going to reject that last sentence. I mean, I like to just, keep it the same as it is now. Sounds fair enough. If you don't have enough sick leave, then it would be, I guess, an unexcused absence. And Article 49, wages and salaries. What's the status of that? It's just rejected from the county or
You mean your previous proposal from
$1 an hour?
They were rejected, yes.
What
And
is
the
your
reopening. proposal is twofold, right? Have a $1 per hour increase in year one and reopen for year two.
Right, I don't think
We've spent year one bargaining, so I don't know, where are you with respect to the term of contract?
What is your position on the last sentence of that third paragraph? Do you have it in yours?
Your proposal?
Yeah.
That's what I have. Is that what you're looking at, John?
No, I have a handwritten. Well, it says at the end of that third paragraph, I'll read the whole thing. Newly hired employees may be paid above the minimum salary subject to the request of the employment department / division head, may be authorized by the county administrator up to the top of pay range, or designate maximum of 10%. If the applicant's training, experience, or other qualifications are substantially above those required for the position, or there are not qualified applicants available who are willing to accept the minimum salary, and our added verbiage to that of the county was provided such employees are not paid at a higher rate than the lowest paid employee in this position. Meaning that if your pay ranges are not attracting, qualified candidates, and you find one you want to pay them more, as long as you're not paying them more than the lowest paid person in that classification, in that position.
Yeah.
Is that coupled with the $1 per hour?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm just asking what is your position on that? I thought you had seen this, apparently you had. I could have sworn you made copies of it with these notes in there, but
No, I didn't have it on
That's
this.
it.
do you have anything that says $1 on that?
I do. Then, the first day you handed out Article 49, you said that
Okay.
it was changed from 5% to $1.
Well, I'm just trying to just chunk it out. In other words, how do you feel about that? Just see if we can get some common ground in this proposal. How do you feel about that?
I don't, to me, that would be a link to what are we talking about for wages for whatever the term of the contract is. And let me just throw that back out there. What are you now looking at the term of the contract? Our position might change depending on how long out you're going and whether there's a reopener.
Well, why don't you share how your position would change according to different contract lengths, and then maybe the longer the contract, the more inclined you are to do what? Or the shorter the contract, the more inclined to do what?
Well, the longer the contract, I'm more inclined to think about a reopener provision.
Yeah, the last I heard, the employees wanted a 2-year deal, and they would come back and look at wages in a year, just opening it up for wages, but, it's been changing from time to time. I mean, I think we're already at April, we're almost May at this point.
So for practical purposes, we're really talking about, certainly with respect to wages, we're talking about language that would take effect this coming fiscal year, October 1st. Because by the time we're done bargaining and we submit for ratification, the fiscal year is essentially over.
Well, we could get this thing wrapped up in 2 weeks, and there's no reason why we can't.
But my point is there'd be nothing retro in it, so, and our proposal is that our proposal is nothing for the current fiscal year, no additional increases. Your proposal is $1 per hour, which we've rejected.
Well, I just thought you said that the contract would become effective, and I mean, you're talking just from a monetary standpoint, or the entire agreement, because if we reached an agreement in June, just because if it was agreed that there's no increase at that point in time, that would be separate and apart from the language becoming effective.
Yeah, then the balance of this fiscal year would be
Or-
in play, I agree.
Right, or our wage proposal may or may not have a retroactive component. That's just something we need to cross. And right now, this proposal just says it's $1 an hour. That's obviously upon ratification and becoming effective.
Well, it says for the term first year. So if you define the term of the first year as being October 1, 2012 to 9/30/13, that $1 would be retroactive. We're rejecting that.
My proposal doesn't say for a one-year term, it just says a termless agreement. So that's
Well,
not
I'm reading your proposal, John. It says there will be, and I'm doing it the way you change it, there will be a $1 per hour wage and salary adjustment for the term first year of this agreement.
I don't have first year on mine, so why do
You
you have?
gave me this. This is your language. This is your proposal that you gave us on 2/20/13.
Okay, well, I'm looking at yours, stated.
But I'm looking at yours, okay?
Well,
That's why I asked you.
We've been
I'm
working
asking you
all
what's,
along from this one, so I guess we're just reading two different proposals.
well, I'm asking what the duration is. That's important to that $1. If it's for if it's for
If
year
I
one.
understand, this was rejected, and so we were working off of this document that you gave to us originally on 322. We've been working from that 322 document all along, and that doesn't say 1 year, so I guess that's where the confusion lies.
Well, that's why I'm asking what you are proposing for duration and term.
I understand that.
It-
And I believe
Obviously,
that-
that leads to the question about whether you're looking for anything retroactive. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, okay, that we were amenable to your $1 per hour increase. When would it take effect under your proposal? Or maybe that's not on the table anymore.
Yeah, it's on the table.
Okay, so let's just assume that we were amenable to $1 per hour. When would that, taking effect when?
My understanding of contract provisions become effective when the contract becomes effective. So if the contract becomes effective next week, next month, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, that's when the wage would take effect.
Oh, so the Teamsters have never had a contract that was had a retroactive wage?
Why are you why are you making that assumption? I never said that.
Well,
The
because
Teamsters
it's-
never had a retroactive agreement. We have them all the time.
Well, because you just said you're understanding the way contracts work is that they're
That's the way
prospective.
this contract proposal is worded. It doesn't say anything about retroactive.
I'm not trying to catch, I'm trying to just
I
find out
don't
what
care
your
what you're
proposal
trying to
is.
do. All I'm trying to figure out is why you're referencing a proposal that was 6 months ago when we're working from this proposal packet that you gave us.
Because it's clear that you're still pursuing it.
We're still pursuing $1 an hour, we sure are.
Okay, that's why I'm responding to it. Now I'm trying to figure out
When?
so that we can figure out what does that cost, so we can say we can afford it or we can't afford it.
Upon ratification, a $1 an hour raise will take effect. Does that help you?
It very much.
Okay. Can you look through your pile of papers and perhaps find the document that was given to you that has this language that's on here? It's your document. It's page 67 and 75.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have that document right here. Okay. I just wrote notes on it. Prior to today, I have not written notes on it.
Okay.
So you haven't given me
I
any.
specifically remember you guys making copies of this document with this writing on there. I've been just sitting in this room giving it to you and saying, well, let's make copies because we had to abruptly end our bargaining session and we wanted to see where we were with the proposals. So,
I don't have it, and I did just look. So
yeah.
if I had it, what would it say?
What I just read to you in the secretary office, I'm trying to get an understanding of what, at least how you feel about that. And you said, well, it just depends on how long the contract is. I don't really understand why. But if you're gonna give somebody a raise that's above the minimum salary,
Not a raise, this is for new hires. Language, right?
the newly hired employees may
Yeah,
be
newly
paid
hired.
above you're gonna give them a raise above the minimum salary. In other words, you're gonna give them higher than what the minimum salary is.
Yes.
Okay. That would be a raise above the minimum.
Okay. I don't agree with that terminology, but I'll go with it.
Okay, well, if you're going to give someone a raise above the minimum, a higher rate above the minimum, do you agree with the concept that they're not gonna make more than the lowest paid person in that position?
In that position, in that department, or in that position throughout the county?
Well, your proposal says, department/division head is making a decision, so what authority does he have over what group of employees? So whatever.
But you're comparing to a group of employees, I just wanna see what group of employees you're talking about. If you're talking about.
Whatever ones
the
that are
seats-
in that
if you took-
position. A department head, a division head is saying, you know what, Bruce Lee, you got a tremendous amount of knowledge, even though it doesn't have anything to do with the job. I really appreciate all the extra knowledge that you have, and I want to give you an increase over and above. What is Bruce Lee's position? So whatever his position is, and he's hired into a position, so whether that is department-wide or county-wide, I don't know how many different departments his position would be in.